There are objects in this world that should never have been found. Items that carry with them the weight of centuries soaked in blood, tragedy, and whispers from beyond. One such story comes from a small museum in Prague, where an artifact once believed to be a harmless relic became the center of a horror no one could explain. It was called ****, the Veil of Ashur ****, a ceremonial mask carved from obsidian, traced back to a forgotten Mesopotamian cult. Its surface was etched with symbols no historian could fully translate, though some said they meant the face that watches. The mask had been unearthed in 1928 by a British expedition. Within weeks of its discovery, 3 men on that dig had died, one from fever, another crushed under a fallen stone, and the third found hanging in his tent. But the mask still traveled back to Europe. It passed from collector to collector until finally it was locked away in the basement of a Prague museum. For decades, it was forgotten until 1976, when curators began to catalog the old storage rooms. That was when the mask was rediscovered. The stories begin with Anna Richter, a young curator. She was tasked with documenting artifacts. In her journal, she wrote of an unease when looking at the mask. She claimed that its eyes seemed to shimmer faintly in the dark, and that when she looked away, she felt as if something leaned closer. A week later, she confided to her colleagues that she'd begun hearing whispers, always the same phrase, in a language she couldn't understand. The others dismissed it as nerves. But then, the accidents started. One guard was found unconscious at his post, babbling about a black figure with no face. Another curator vanished while cataloging alone. His notebook was discovered on the floor, the last line scrawled hastily, "It's behind me." His body was never recovered. The museum board grew frightened and moved the mask into a locked glass case in a private archive. For a time, the disturbances quieted, but legends spread among staff that at night, footsteps echoed in the halls. Some swore they saw their own reflection in the glass blink even when they hadn't. In 1989, a visiting professor insisted on studying the mask. He persuaded the director to remove it from the case. Against warnings, he placed it against his face for just a moment, joking about wearing the veil. Minutes later, he collapsed, convulsing violently, his eyes wide open as if staring at something no one else could see. He died before paramedics arrived. His last words, whispered with his final breath, were, "It's hungry."
The mask was returned to its case, but by then, fear gripped the museum. Attendance dwindled. Staff quit in silence, refusing to explain why. Rumors spread that the building itself was cursed. In 1993, the museum shut down the entire wing and sealed the archive. The mask was never displayed again. Yet, even in hiding, the Veil of Ashur left its mark. In 2004, construction crews renovating the museum reported tools vanishing, shadows moving across walls, and sudden drops in temperature. One worker was found outside the sealed archive door, screaming that something inside was knocking. The door was tested solid steel, untouched. Today, no one knows the true fate of the artifact. Some whisper it was buried deep beneath the museum, encased in concrete to ensure it could never be touched again. Others claim private collectors bribed officials to smuggle it out, and that somewhere in a hidden chamber, the veil still waits, its obsidian eyes watching for the next soul curious enough to meet its gaze. And perhaps the most unsettling detail of all comes from Anna Richter's journal, the one that was kept in storage for decades. In her last entry, just days before she vanished, she wrote, "The mask isn't waiting to be found. It chose to be found. It wanted to leave the ground. And now it wants to wear us." They say curses are just stories, warnings to keep us away from dangerous truths. But sometimes the story is the only thing keeping the curse contained. So if you ever find yourself in a dusty old collection, staring into obsidian eyes carved centuries ago, don't listen to the whispers. Don't touch the mask, because some artifacts don't belong to us. They never did.